Welcome back to another installment of Everything NHL. I'm your host, Nathan, and we're here with our hockey expert, James Kumar.
Hey, what's up, man?
So, this week we're going to go over Thursday and Friday's games. Then we'll take a look at some pickups that you guys can pick up, and then we'll preview Saturday's games.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's hop into it.
All right, so let's start with the Philadelphia versus the Boston game. Pretty good game by Boston. They were able to beat Philadelphia 3-2. David Pastrnak with 2 goals in the first period. Cam Atkinson and Joel Farabee uh, both with a goal for Philadelphia, and David Pastrnak with the third goal in the second period. Uh, no goals in the third period. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, good game overall. I guess starting with Boston, obviously David Pastrnak got a hat trick. Great game for him. Tuukka Rask, it was his first game back playing goalie for Boston. It's nice to see him get the win. Then as for the Flyers, I mean, they played a pretty good game here overall. Could have used a bit more scoring, but yeah, they've just been up and down all year. So I think the better team won this game.
Yeah, I mean, Boston, they're solid every year, so I guess this year isn't any different.
Yeah, they've just been playing really well for the last few games. I think ever since they came back from the break, they've just been playing really well. So yeah, they're looking good right now.
For sure. And moving on to another team that's looking pretty good, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning beating the Canucks 4-2. Really dominant performance. We have Steven Stamkos in the first period for Tampa Bay, and we have um, Anthony Cirelli for Tampa Bay as well in the first period, and we have Matthew Highmore for Vancouver in the first. No goals in the second period, but we have Boris Kachuk and Braden Point for Tampa Bay in the third, and Tyler Mott for Vancouver in the third as well. And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think since coming back from their break, Vancouver just been not playing as great. Whether it was the layoff or whatnot, it sort of halted their momentum. So well, I mean, they've been on a road trip as well. They lost to Florida. Now they lose here to Tampa Bay. And I mean, Tampa Bay is pretty healthy right now. So you're facing a healthy Stanley Cup champions. I mean, it's going to be tough to get the win. So yeah, Tampa Bay just did their thing. So good win for them. And I guess for Vancouver, hopefully they bounce back next game.
Sure. And speaking of bounce back, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets getting a 6-goal shutout against the Carolina Hurricanes. Really impressive upset. Was not expecting that at all. Um, Emil Bemstrom in the first, Jaeger Chenikov for Columbus in the second. And then in the third, we just had a bunch of goals. Patrick Lane, Jaeger Chenikov again, Cole Sellinger, and Jack Roslovic. All these goals are for Columbus. Carolina didn't score anything. What do you think about this performance?
Yeah, I guess just dating back to, I believe it was early January, if I'm not mistaken. I think these two teams played against each other that time as well. I think Columbus went up like 4-0 or something. And then Carolina just came back and scored like 7 straight goals after that and beat them. So this time it was the other way around. I mean, Columbus went up 4-0, but instead of 4-0, they just decided to go up 6-0. And then this time they held on to their lead. So yeah, good for Columbus. They haven't been great as a road team this year. So it's nice to see them get a win on the road. And then as for Carolina, it's probably just a one-off. I think they're one of the best teams in the East right now. So I wouldn't read too much into this game, but yeah, they definitely need to turn things around in their next one.
I mean, getting a road win against Carolina of all teams. I mean, it's probably just a one-off, but I think it's a win that they can probably keep going with them.
Yeah, I mean, a win's a win. Even if it's a one-off, you still take the wins when you can get them. And I guess Columbus is sort of trying to turn things around.
For sure. And moving on to another shutout, we have the Winnipeg Jets getting the shutout over the Detroit Red Wings. Much needed win by Winnipeg. Andrew Kopp in the first and second period, and Kyle Connor in the third period. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think the Jets are trying to make a push for a playoff spot in the West. The West is pretty wide open in terms of which teams can get in because some of the teams have started to slip. So Jets trying to take advantage of that. So good win for them here. As for Detroit, they're sort of leveling off. I know they had a good start to the season, but they're kind of sort of falling back to where we expected them to be at the beginning of the year. So, although they have been great at home, this is just one of these games that probably try and forget and sort of move on from. I think Detroit is a better home team than they looked in this game.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be able to show some more really good home team performances. I think they still have a couple games left in them.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And I guess moving on to the next game, we have the New York Islanders with a pretty solid win over the New Jersey Devils. They were able to take this 3-2. We have Yegor Sharangovich in the first for New Jersey and Josh Bailey in the first for the Islanders. Adam Pelech for the Islanders in the second. And in the third period, we have Nathan Bastian for New Jersey in the third and Matthew Barzal for the Islanders in the third as well. What are your thoughts on these two teams?
Yeah, I think the Islanders have played pretty well coming out of their break. I think they've won like 4 times in their past 5 games. So they've been playing a lot better than they were at the beginning of the year. And I think New Jersey's sort of going in the opposite direction. They had a good start and they've just sort of tailed off and it just hasn't really turned around for them. So yeah, I think both of these two teams, they have different trajectories. One started good and they're kind of dropping, and then one started out kind of bad and they're trying to move up. So we'll see what happens with these two teams.
Yeah, with the Islanders, they did have a pretty extended adjustment period, so I'm hoping that it's not too late for them to catch up.
Yeah, it might be too late, but I think they'll still end up with a respectable record by the end.
For sure. And I guess moving on to the next game, we have Seattle versus St. Louis. St. Louis was able to come back in the third period and win 2-1. So pretty good job by St. Louis. We have Alex Wenberg for Seattle in the first, no goals in the second, but in the third period we have Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich for St. Louis to clutch the game out and I guess come back from behind and win. So I guess what are your thoughts?
Yeah, St. Louis has been doing this all year, getting clutch wins. Yeah, they're just doing it against whoever. They're one of the best teams in the West right now, so great on them. That's for Seattle. I think this is their 8th straight loss. So the losses are just piling up for this Seattle team. There's not much else to say. These two teams have pretty much opposite records at this point. One is projecting to be one of the best teams, and one's projecting to be one of the worst teams. There's not much else I could say.
Yeah, well, I mean, Seattle is an expansion team, so it is forgivable. Normally, expansion teams they don't really do the best, at least for the first few years. So they're just trying to feel things out. And I guess for St. Louis, what are your thoughts on how well they're doing so far?
Yeah, I mean, I expected them to be a playoff team, but I don't know if I expected them to be this dominant. So yeah, they're looking really great right now. They're looking like one of the deepest teams in the West right now. So there's not much else I can say. They've been getting the scoring, they've been getting the defense, and their goalies have played well. So they're just a great overall team.
For sure. And I guess speaking of playing really well, the Buffalo Sabres were able to pull up an upset against the Nashville Predators. Really impressive performance. They were able to win 4-1. We have Mark Jankowski in the first for Buffalo, and we have Matt Duchene for Nashville in the second period, and we have Jeff Skinner for Buffalo in the second period as well. And in the third period, we have Jeff Skinner and Vinny Hinostroza for Buffalo. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, very surprising win on the road for Buffalo. They get a great win here. They end Nashville's 5-game winning streak. This game's probably just a one-off for Nashville. They've been one of the more dominant teams as of late. Yeah, I think Buffalo, they just played the better game. I'm not sure whether actually I think Nashville did play the night before. I think that's one of the main reasons why they could have lost. Maybe they're a bit tired. But other than that, yeah, Nashville's been really strong all year. I just expect them to sort of get back on track. And then as for Buffalo, they've kind of slipped lately. This win is pretty good, but hopefully they can keep it up.
I guess what are your thoughts on Buffalo going forward?
Yeah, honestly, they're probably just looking to next year at this point. My only things to say would be, try and get as much wins as you can, see what you have in your younger kids as you bring them into the lineup. And then, yeah, it's more of just about evaluating talent at this point.
For sure. And I guess moving on to the next game, we have the Chicago Blackhawks winning in overtime against the Montreal Canadiens, 3-2. We have Dominic Kubalik for Chicago in the first, and then in the second we have Jeff Petrie and Mike Hoffman for Montreal. Patrick Kane for Chicago in the third, and Philip Kurashev for Chicago in overtime. What do you think about these two teams?
Yeah, I mean, both teams haven't had the best seasons. Montreal has been one of the worst teams in the league. I think they've lost 5 in a row now. So it's just another routine loss for Montreal at this point. As for Chicago, there's still a few games behind 500. This win was good in that sense. Hopefully, their record can sort of become more respectable as the season goes along. But I think it's still a stretch for them to try and make the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, I guess Chicago's kind of in a similar situation as New York, where they also had an extended adjustment period. So I guess are we going to see Chicago in the playoffs anytime soon?
It's going to be tough. They'd have to pretty much win a large portion of their games. Well, I mean, anything can happen, but it's really tough for me to see it.
Yeah, kind of unfortunate. But I guess moving on to a more fortunate game, we have the Ottawa Senators pulling an upset against Calgary. They were able to win this game 4-1, so very impressive. We have Nick Paul with 2 goals for Ottawa in the first, Drake Batherson with a goal of his own for Ottawa in the second, and in the third period we have Matthew Tkachuk with the only goal of the game for Calgary, and Connor Brown with an unassisted goal for Ottawa. What do you think about these two teams?
Yeah, this one was pretty unexpected. I didn't expect to see a result like this, but good for Ottawa. Matt Murray played well. I think it's his first win of the season. He's been injured. He's been out of the lineup. I mean, yeah, good for him. Looks like he's coming back to starting goal for Ottawa. And then as for Calgary, they've been slumping lately. I don't know what else to say. They had a pretty good lead on that division, the Pacific Division. Now Vegas is ahead of them. They don't look that great. They really need to do something to turn things around for sure.
I guess what do you think that they can do going forward to kind of correct things?
It's probably some coaching adjustments they'll have to do. It seems like their scoring just hasn't been there since the break. So maybe sort of try and get that going, maybe switch up the line, see what works. And yeah, hopefully they can sort of improve on their next games.
Sure. And moving on to the next game, we have really surprising, um, I guess, an upset. The LA Kings were able to defend their house against Pittsburgh, and they won by 6-2. So that's really impressive. We have Chris Letang for Pittsburgh in the first, and Anze Kopitar for LA in the first, and in the second we had Dustin Brown for the Kings, and in the third period we have Radim Zavorna for Pittsburgh, and then we have 4 goals by the LA Kings in the third by Mikey Anderson, Victor Arvidsson, and Kopitar again, and John Bersey. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this game was pretty tight, I'd say, for most of it. And then LA just sort of took things over in the third period. I mean, they've looked pretty impressive lately. Um, yeah, I believe they're surging towards trying to make the playoffs there in the West. They have a pretty good record at the moment. I mean, what, 19, 13, and 5 is pretty impressive for the Kings. As for the Penguins, this loss was kind of just a one-off. They've been really hot. They're one of the top teams in the Metro Division. So I wouldn't read too much into it. Pittsburgh was on the road. Obviously, in the West, it's tough. So good win for the Kings overall.
Yeah, it looks like the LA Kings are kind of like a sleeper team. So I guess What do you think are their chances for the playoffs?
I mean, considering the way things have been going in the West with teams sort of not playing up to their sort of potential, I feel like the Kings do have a decent chance of getting in. I mean, they are third in the Pacific Division right now, so they have been playing pretty good. So, I mean, if Calgary and Edmonton keep slumping the way they have, I think there's plenty of room for LA to get in there.
Sure. And moving on to the next game, we have the New York Rangers with a shutout against the Sharks. So pretty impressive job by the Rangers. Chris Kreider in the first, and no goals in the second period. And Braden Schneider and Chris Kreider with another goal for the Rangers. What are your thoughts between these two teams?
Yeah, I mean, a good game for the Rangers. Um, Honestly, they've just been really solid over this season. The Sharks, they've been sort of up and down. Kind of expected the Rangers to win this game. They went into San Jose and got it done. So good on the Rangers here.
Sure. And I guess that's pretty much it for Thursday's games. So we'll move on to Friday's games. This one's a really high scoring game. We have Florida Panthers pretty much blowing out the Dallas Stars. Dallas was only able to get one goal, and Florida ended up getting seven. We have Gustav Forsling and Anthony Declare for Florida in the first, and in the second we have Carter Verhaeghe, Jonathan Huberdeau, and Sam Bennett with two goals for Florida. And in the third period, we had Sam Bennett with a third goal for Florida, and Rupe Heinz for Dallas with the only goals for the Stars. What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I think Dallas was just coming off a back to back. They were pretty tired from the night before. They had a victory, I believe it was against Seattle. I'm not going to put too much on them. I feel like it's just a one off. They'll most likely bounce back next game, but I guess great for Florida. One of the best teams at home this year. And yeah, they just poured in the goals. Sam Bennett got a hat trick. Yeah, this team's pretty much rolling right now.
For sure. And I guess moving on to the next game, we have another really high scoring game. Minnesota was able to beat Anaheim 7-3, so really good job by Minnesota. We have Kevin Fiala, Ryan Hartman, and Matt Zuccarello for Minnesota in the first, and we have Max Comtois for Anaheim in the first. No goals in the second period, but in the third period we have Derek Grant and Trevor Zegras for Anaheim in the third, and Matt Boldy, Matt Zuccarello again, Victor Rask, and Matt Dumba for Minnesota in the third. What are your thoughts?
Honestly, great game for Minnesota. They've been slumping a little bit as of late, but yeah, this game hopefully will get Minnesota back on track. And I guess as for Anaheim, they haven't had John Gibson, their goalie, and I mean they've struggled a little bit. They're slowly dropping some games. So Anaheim, I feel like they need to get Gibson back, and I guess they need to start playing the way they were playing earlier in the year. We don't want them to be another one of these teams that sort of falls back from their high expectations at the beginning of the year.
For sure. And I guess, what do you think about Minnesota going forward?
Yeah, this team should be a playoff team. I'm not really worried about that. I feel like they were a solid team last year. They're a solid team once again. They had a couple hiccups recently, but should be pretty good.
Sure. And I guess the the last game going on is Arizona versus Colorado. It's about wrapping up, but it's not quite done yet. I think it's 3-3. Still in the third period, 2 minutes 54 seconds to go, so it might end up going to overtime. So really good job by Arizona so far. Unfortunately, Vegas versus Edmonton has been postponed, so we won't be covering that. So I guess we'll move on to the pickup portion of the podcast. And who do you got for forwards?
Yeah, I was gonna have Tanner Janot again, but we got him up to over 50%. So Tanner Janot 50 worked within a couple weeks, which was good. So yeah, all my forwards are under 50% rostered. Obviously, the first one I'll start with is Robert Thomas from the St. Louis Blues. He's just been pretty solid as of late. I think he's got like 3 points in his last 3 games, 5 in his last 5. 6 in his last 6. I mean, he scores pretty much a point per game lately. I think he's been +6 over his last 6 games as well. He pretty much averages like 2 shots a game. So he's pretty impressive in that sense. So if you need someone that's center right wing eligible, go pick up Robert Thomas. And then I have Matt Zuccarello from the Minnesota Wild. Obviously, he had 2 goals and an assist in the game we just talked about. Yeah, he's just been pretty solid. I think he had 2 points in the 2 games before that as well. So the guy's averaging 4 shots over his last 3 games, and he's a +4. So yeah, go pick up Matt Zuccarello, right wing eligible. And then one other guy I have is Valery Nichushkin from the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, he gets shots, he gets hits, and I mean, he plays on one of the highest scoring teams in the league. So he's been getting points as well. He plays both wing spots in fantasy. So definitely go pick up Valery Nichushkin.
For sure. And I guess for forwards, I guess the first person I'll talk about would be Anthony Cirelli. It's about 39% rostered, so he's more of a shallow league pickup. But for the season, he has 11 goals, 12 assists. It's +8, and he has 71 shots. So in terms of offense, he's really well-rounded. He ended up just getting 2 goals in the last 2 games. So I think he's somebody that pretty much anyone can pick up. And I guess for my next forward, I have Garnet Hathaway. He's currently in the Washington Capitals, and for the season he has 7 goals, 6 assists. He's +11, 62 shots. He gets a lot of hits as well. I think he has over 100 hits for the season, so really impressive for a forward to get that many hits. So if you especially need hits and you need a little bit in other categories, and Garnet Hathaway can help you out there. And I guess for my last forward, I have Alex Iafallo for the LA Kings. He has 10 goals, 12 assists. He's +7 with 102 shots. So he's, I think, a deep league pickup with a lot of value. So if you're in a deep league, 24% rostered, so he's most likely going to be in your league. So you should definitely pick him up before he becomes more of a shallow league pickup. So that's it for forwards. So who you got for defense?
All right, for defense, I have Gustav Forsling from the Florida Panthers. It's only around 25% rostered. And I mean, he's just been so solid. I think he had a goal in the game that we talked about for Friday. He was +2 and he had 2 shots in that game. And I believe he's had 4 points in his past 5 games. I think he's had a total of, what is it, +8 over his past 5 games. So it's almost +2 every night. This he gets at least a shot or more every game, and he'll get some hits. So for a defenseman, that's great. Go pick up Forsling. My other defenseman is Brady Shea from the Carolina Hurricanes. He's just been so solid. In his past 4 games, he has 4 goals. For a defenseman, that's pretty insane. He also has 2 assists over that span, and I believe he's a total of +3. I think one of those games he had 7 shots as well. So getting at least 2 shots a game over his past 4 and chipping in some hits, almost a hit every game. So yeah, go pick up Brady Shea.
For sure. And I guess for some defensemen that I think people can maybe take a look at, first one, I guess, Nick Jensen. He has 3 goals, 8 assists. He's +19 with 48 shots. Guess he's a defenseman that gets a lot of assists, a lot of plus minus. He gets some hits here and there. Like sometimes he'll get 4. I think that was the amount that he got last game, but he's mostly good for assists and plus minus. So if you need those, you can pick him up. And I guess my next defenseman would be Hampus Lindholm for the Anaheim Ducks. He's trending up a little bit in roster percent. He's about 15% roster right now with 5 goals, 10 assists. He's +6 with 75 shots. So if you need assists, shots, or plus minus, or maybe even a couple of goals for a deep league, then he's definitely someone that you'd want to pick up. And so I guess who you got for goalies?
Yeah, so for goalies, I have a pretty deep league pickup under 10% rostered. His name is Karel Vejmelka from Arizona. I know you might cringe saying, oh, he's from Arizona, but I mean, he's been playing pretty well. He got a crazy win against Toronto this week. I think he had like 45 saves in that game or something. He had like another 46 save game against Winnipeg earlier. Um, I believe the week before that. So I mean, he's getting a good save percentage overall because he's just facing a lot of shots. He might not always get the wins. I mean, he's had 2 wins out of his past 4. So, I mean, for Arizona, I think that's pretty good. So, if you're in a deep league, maybe take a look at Vimelka.
Sure. And I guess maybe for a shallow league, I think maybe people could maybe take a look at Aiden Hill. I think for the year he has 9 wins, his goal against average is 2.77 and his save percentage is 0.905. He ended up having 3 wins in his last 5 games, so I think that's pretty impressive. He's about 40% rostered, so he's more of a shallow league pickup. So um, if you need someone in a shallow league, Aiden Hill is probably someone you might want to take a look at. And that about concludes the pickup portion of the podcast. So we'll move on to the previews for Saturday's games. And we'll start with Nashville versus Boston. And who do you think takes this game?
Honestly, this game could probably go either way, to be honest. Both teams have been playing pretty well. I might lean with Boston. I think just because they're at home and I mean they've been on a hot streak. I feel like Nashville's hot streak might be coming to an end, so I'll lean Boston there.
All right. And moving on to the next game, we have Vancouver versus Carolina. Who gets to snap their cold streak?
Yeah, this one's tough. Um, yeah, I might lean with Carolina, but I wouldn't be surprised if Vancouver won here. I feel like, um, I mean, they have been playing pretty good. Obviously, this road trip's been tough for them. I'll lean Carolina, but I like Vancouver as well.
All right. And moving on to the next game, we have Washington versus the Islanders. Who do you think takes this game?
I mean, Washington has struggled a little bit, and the Islanders have been better. Could the Islanders upset them? Maybe, but I think I'll still go with Washington here.
All right. And moving on to Columbus versus Florida. Who do you think takes this?
Or you got to take Florida at home. They've just been so good. Even if it's off a back-to-back, I feel like they can still get the win. So I'll take Florida.
All right. And moving on, we have Toronto versus St. Louis. Powerhouse matchup, but who do you think takes this?
Yeah, this game's going to be tough for Toronto. St. Louis has just been so good lately. I think it'll have to depend on the goalie matchup. I would lean Toronto, but um, yeah, it's possible St. Louis gets the win. This game's pretty much a coin flip, in my opinion.
All right. Moving on to Buffalo versus Detroit. Who do you think takes this game?
I want to say Detroit takes it at home, but I mean, the way they've played as of late, I don't know. This game could go either way, but I would lean Detroit for sure.
All right. And moving on to Dallas versus Tampa Bay. Do you think Dallas can get a win here?
I feel like Dallas will play better than they did against Florida, but at the end of the day, this is Tampa Bay. So I don't know what I would say to that. Um, yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to lean with the Lightning. They've been so good.
All right. And moving on to Anaheim versus Chicago. Who do you think takes this?
I feel like the Ducks can bounce back here. Um, I mean, don't quote me on it, obviously, but this feels like a game where they could bounce back, even though Chicago is at home. Yeah, maybe I might go with Anaheim actually.
All right. And moving on to Colorado versus Arizona. Um, who do you think could take this game?
Well, I mean, it's probably going to depend on who takes the game currently going on right now. I think it's 3-3 in overtime. So um, I think that Colorado should be able to take the second meeting either way. But then again, you never know. But I will lean Colorado.
All right. And And moving on to LA versus Seattle, who do you think takes this?
Oh, LA's been playing great. I think I got to lean with them. They've just been really solid. Even away from home, I like them.
And moving on to Ottawa versus Edmonton, do you think Ottawa can get a win?
They might be able to actually because both teams haven't played the best, but Ottawa's been playing better than the Oilers as of late. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking the Oilers do get the win at home, but like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Ottawa wins.
All right. And moving on to Pittsburgh versus San Jose, who gets to snap their their cold streak?
Yeah, I think the Penguins should be able to bounce back here. I like them to get the win here.
All right. And I guess the next three games after have been postponed: New Jersey, Montreal, Ottawa, Winnipeg, and Vegas, Calgary. So I think that's it for Saturday's games. So do you have any final thoughts?
Honestly, teams are getting back from their breaks, whether they were shut down or whatever. So I guess we'll finally see the where things sort of shake out because some teams have played more games than others. So as things start to even out, I feel like we'll see which are the best teams in both conferences.
Yeah, I guess my concern for teams is because some games have been postponed, some are still being postponed a little bit, but once the schedule kind of corrects, there's going to be a lot of back-to-back games. So there's going to be a lot of teams that are like on the road for multiple games. They don't really have proper rest. So I guess hopefully they'll be able to, keep their momentum through tons of back-to-back games.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's going to be a rough schedule. So hopefully these teams can sort of get through it.
And that about concludes this week for everything NHL. If you liked what you watched, you can subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a like, leave us a review, and give us your thoughts on the NHL so far. If you liked what you listened to, you can follow us on Spotify, and you can also follow us on Apple Music and Google Podcasts. And if you need some sports picks, you can follow us at FanFan Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. And we'll see you guys next week.